Hey, what's going on, guys? This is episode 3 of the series I'm doing on YouTube called Behind the Cover, where we take a behind-the-scenes look at the covers I make here on YouTube. And today's episode is on my cover of Homemade by Owen. Real quick, I just want to shout out my socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. That'll all be down below. If you could follow those to stay up to date on all the content I'm coming out with, that'd be greatly appreciated. Also, if you could subscribe and like this video, that would mean a lot to me. And last but not least, I will put a link to the full cover down below, so make sure you check that out. All right, let's get into it. Homemade is such a good song. It's such a simple country song, a very nostalgic country song. So that's what I tried to capture. Like, heavy on the acoustic guitars, clean guitar tones. It's lovely. All right, so first up, I recorded a scratch track, which, if you don't know what a scratch track is, basically it's just a rough recording of the entire song. So I record it with one mic, it's just acoustic guitar and the vocal, and I play it to a auto drummer track, and it's just to get the song in there, to get the arrangement in there, so then I can build on top of it. Makes it a lot easier. So here's a scratch track.
Yeah, where I grew up, getting dressed up clean, button-down shirt and a good pair of jeans, wasn't Sunday supper without.
Not great, but it gets the job done. So then from there, we can start building on top of it. First thing I like to do is listen back to the song. Typically, I'll listen through the song to get the drums down. I'm no drummer at all. I'm not good at drumming. I use my MIDI keyboard here, my Akai MPK Mini. Basically, I listen for the drum patterns. I try and recreate it. Sometimes I do it track by track. In this case, I did. So, you know, kick drum on one, snare on another, crash on another, stuff like that. But one thing I really liked about the song that I haven't really utilized too much in my other covers is the drum fill right at the beginning. And then I continue to use that drum fill throughout the course of the cover. But I really like that drum fill right in the beginning. And so that was the first thing I went in, tried to create. Let me give you an idea of what it is. So it's just that right here. So I wanted to make sure I got that right. And here's my amateur tip of the day. If you don't know how to play drums and you're making drums with a MIDI keyboard for a cover or a song, my biggest piece of advice is to focus on velocity. If you don't know what velocity is, basically it's the intensity that you're hitting, you know, the drum, the snare, the kick, whatever you're doing. In this case, it was the toms and then the snare at the end. And so you really want to pay attention to how, you want to make it seem realistic. So you pay attention to how, you know, hard they're hitting the note. In this case, it's light to the snare, you're really pounding on it. So if you take a look at the MIDI data here, so you'll see that's only, the velocity's 30 on that note, 46, 59, you know, it just builds up, and then the tom there is 127, the max velocity. So you want to make it seem natural. That's what you would do if you're a real drummer. So there you go. So that's my tip of the day. Focus on velocity if you're playing drums. It goes a long way. So after that drum fill, obviously you have the build up into just a very standard pattern. The crash cymbals on this one, I really like the crashes. The first initial one, I do both cymbals, and then it has a really cool cymbal pattern throughout the song, which you'll hear right here. You'll hear that continually. Small detail, but I like it. So that's it for the drums, pretty simple. And then you have the acoustic guitars. As you know, I always have acoustic guitar in my songs. And if you've seen an episode before, you know I record them twice, pan them left and right. I record them with a condenser microphone because that's the best way to get the best tone out of an acoustic guitar track. So here is our acoustic guitar. It's a very simple strumming pattern. We're in F-sharp major, if you're wondering. And basically, to play an F-sharp major, I just tune my guitar down a half step. Next is the electric guitars. Sometimes I'll include electric guitars. Sometimes I'll feature the electric guitar. It'll be a little bit more prominent in the song. This one, I just kept it. It's a pretty clean guitar tone in there, and I kept it in the background just as like a texture piece. There's no like lead guitar part. It's just this right here. And then I also recorded. Has a little bit of distortion to it on the second one. And again, I record those twice, pan them left and right, record them with my Fender Telecaster up there. When you put all the drums and guitars together, this is what you get. And obviously when we go to the verse, we strip it down a little bit. We really focus on the acoustic guitars. The electric guitars kind of die down a little bit. We take out the cymbals. It's a simpler hi-hat pattern. It's no longer this here. See those hi-hats I'm playing on all the open hi-hats, and then when you get to the verse, it's the simple closed hi-hat pattern, which I really enjoy. So when you get to the end of the verse here, we have that drum fill again, and then we go into the chorus.
Homemade, homemade,
the crashes come back in, the hi-hat pattern, back to the open hi-hat pattern, 16th notes.
Sweet tea, only mama knows how to make.
And we also bring in the bass in the chorus there. Very simple bass pattern, gets the job done. And as you heard, we have the lead vocal there.
Homemade me love a dirt road, homemade me crave some ice cold, homemade.
And we also did the background vocals. Now let me tell you something. Singing your own background vocals is very challenging at times, especially this song is a perfect case of it, because altogether, I'm already singing pretty high with the melody, and then you mix in the background vocals, and I really had to stretch my range on this one, so I want you to listen. It doesn't sound great, but this is the great thing about background vocals. You record them, you put them in the background, no one can really hear them, and you can't really tell how crappy this is, so listen.
Homemade me love a dirt road, homemade me crave some ice cold, homemade sweet.
That sounds terrible. It sounds terrible. It sounds like a dying cat. But when you mix it with some low harmonies,
homemade me love a dirt
sounds a little less like a dying cat. And then, when you add it into the mix,
homemade me love a dirt road, homemade me crave some ice cold, homemade sweet tea, only mama knows how to make.
Basically, if you block both ears, it sounds pretty good. Anyways, moving on from the vocals, one other key part to this song. It's really not that key, but I love it. I love adding little texture pieces like this. If you listen closely in the second chorus, not the first chorus, but the second chorus to the rest of the song, there's a beautiful organ. I love adding an organ when I can. This is a perfect excuse to add an organ. It's a very organ-y song, you know what I'm saying?
Homemade,
very quiet in the background, but if you
love a
listen
small
closely, you can hear
town, homemade me
it
wanna
just sounds
settle
good.
down in a.
And the reason, another tip, the reason I add it to the second chorus is because a wise lesson I learned, I forgot who I learned this from, I wish I could give them credit, is to continually add things throughout the song to keep the story going, so that you don't get to the first chorus and you experience the first chorus and you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna experience this 3 more times. No, you change it up throughout the thing. So the second chorus you introduce the organ, the third chorus, in this case I didn't change it, but the third chorus you can introduce something else. You can introduce another percussion instrument in there to change it up, to constantly add layers, constantly build up the song, so it gives someone something to listen to throughout the entire song, something to look forward to. My lead vocal, I recorded my Behringer B1 condenser microphone, and let's take a listen to it.
Homemade me love a dirt road, homemade me crave some ice cold, homemade.
For my vocals, I put compression, EQ, and reverb, and also a little bit of delay, so we will go through all the settings here. This is my EQ setting. I take out some of the low end, add a little bit of the high end, and I boost this like 200 range just to give it a little bit more warmth. So that's the EQ. My compression settings are there. Pretty simple. And then as for reverb, I have 2 types of reverb that I put on. The first type is a medium sweet reverb. The second type is a plate reverb. It's the bright plate in Logic. And then for tape delay, just a little light tape delay here. As you can see the settings. And then we will listen to the vocal with and without.
Mama knows how to make homemade, homemade me love a small town, homemade me wanna settle down in a
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys have any more questions, I'll be glad to answer them in the comments. Also, in no way do I think I'm a professional. I'm very new to this, self-taught. So if you have any suggestions, if I'm doing anything completely wrong, feel free to yell at me. Just be nice, don't make me cry or anything like that. One more time, if you could just follow me on all my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, down below. That would mean the world to me. And if you could subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And like the video, that would help me out with the algorithm. But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next one.
Homemade, homemade me love a small town. Homemade me want